This beautiful game was played in the year 2003 between Magnus Carlsen, who played the white pieces, against Hans Krogh Harestad, who defended with the black pieces. Magnus with the white pieces played pawn to e4, e5 by Hans, knight to f3, attacking this pawn in the center. Knight to c6 defends the pawn, bishop to b5. This is a typical structure for the Ruy Lopez opening. Naturally, black would love to kick that bishop away by playing a6, and that is what Hans played. He played a6. Bishop to a4, keeping the bishop safe. Knight to f6, attacking his pawn in the center. A natural urge by amateur chess player or beginners who are just getting their scope into opening and middle game tactical ideas. We spot this pawn as being weak because the pawn is under attack by the knight here on f6. So the urge to play pawn to d3 or knight to c3 will come. That is natural. However, an advanced thinking system in this position will enable us to understand that you can go ahead to castle your king because the pawn cannot be captured for free. You have some move that can give you back your pawn. This is why you need to learn how to study, how to think ahead and not just one move ahead. You have to learn how to think for 2 moves ahead or 3 moves. Let me show you an example of what I mean. If white castles, because that's exactly what Magnus Carlsen did in the game. If black picks this pawn, you see, we can say that black has gotten 1 pawn ahead. How can we get back the pawn? You can get it with many variations. I will just show you one. There is a move like this, rook to e1. The rook to e1 attack the knight and also attack the pawn. You should observe that the knight also attack this pawn. The defender is this knight here. So since the rook attacks the knight, playing this move, f5, is natural. I won't show that variation. However, let's talk about where knight goes back to f6 for safety. We can go ahead to take this pawn right away because it's defended by the rook. There is also bishop takes knight, pawn takes, and knight takes the pawn in the center, which would enable black to play bishop to e7. We have gotten our pawn back, and now we've created this doubled pawn on the c5 for black. So that variation is giving us a little advantage because of this double pawn. And now our king is even castled faster than black king. So it's something to take note of. In this position, an experienced black player would not take the pawn. So a player like Hans did not take the pawn. He played b5 instead. He further harassed the light squared bishop. Magnus Carlsen played bishop to b3. Bishop to e7 followed. Rook to e1. After d6, c3, Hans castled. This is one thing you should take note. Before move 10, the both players castled their king to safety. So after the minor development in the opening, you've developed your minor pieces, they're active, and the center is well managed. You can now castle your king to safety. h3 followed, trying to stop this bishop from coming down to this square. So, knight to a5, going after the light squared bishop. Bishop to c2, c5. d4, queen to c7. Knight on b to d2, knight to c6. d5, attacking that knight. Knight to d8. a4, rook to e7, knight to f1, g6, bishop to h6, attacking this rook, rook to e8, knight to g3, knight to d7, knight to h2, f6. The idea with f6 is to form a base to trap this bishop out of the game. So, to successfully play this move, pawn to g5, f6 has to come first, then followed by a knight, so that the bishop will be trapped. Supporting this, Magnus Carlsen played the bishop away from that position by playing bishop to e3. Knight to b6 followed, pawn takes on b5, pawn takes on b5, bishop to d3, attacking this pawn, bishop to d7, defending, queen to d2. After knight to f7, rook takes on a7, queen takes on a7, queen to e2. Queen to e2 supports the bishop to attack this pawn. Hence, queen to e6, defending that pawn. Knight to g4, king to g7. Bishop to c1, knight to a4. Knight to a4 prepares this knight to be maneuvered through this square. Soon, this pawn will be pushed to attack the bishop here. Then the knight will use this square and get into the game through some nice outposts. So, in this position, Magnus Carlsen saw this coming and played bishop to c2. Rook to a8, queen to e3. After c4, rook to f1, knight to c5, knight to h6. In this position, there is something Hans did. He preferred not to take the knight. Why? If knight takes knight, queen takes knight. This is check to the king. If king moves away from this pawn, the pawn will fall. So, the king will love to stay near the pawn by moving up. After this, Magnus will try to play for an attack and open room for the rook. Will play f4. This move introduces more attackers towards the king side. So, in this position, he decided to go with a different concept with knight to g5. f4 comes up anyways. Pawn takes on f4, queen takes on f4. If king takes this knight, then h4 follows. So, in this position, Hans tries to be sneaky by throwing in bishop takes the pawn on h3. If Magnus takes this bishop right away, then the queen is gone. After knight takes pawn on h3 check, king move, knight takes the queen. That's why in this position, after bishop takes the pawn on h3, Magnus went for queen to h4. Bishop back to d7, e5. Pawn takes on e5, knight to h5, check. A sacrifice that tends to demolish black defense because black is heavily guarded by these pawns. Let's not forget, the bishop has influence over that long diagonal. This bishop is also there. So a nice sacrifice like this knight to h5 is a sneaky one which needs to be considered. In this position, if king takes the knight on h6, he runs into a variation where knight takes the pawn on f6, opens a check from the queen, king to g7, bishop takes on g5. To have a further continuation, the bishop takes the knight on f6 because, the queen is coming here. So let's say bishop takes the knight, eliminating an immediate threat. Queen to h6 check, king to f7. Now this bishop is pinned by the rook to the king. Queen takes the pawn on h7 check. King to e8. The king is trying to run. So the next solid move will be bishop takes bishop, so that this bishop will cut out this square from the king to run. A way to save the game is to give up the queen. However, if Hans doesn't want to give up the queen and play something different like queen to d6, guiding against checkmate on this square, we can introduce a stronger attacker by bringing a bishop. Now after bishop check, if king moves to f8, queen to f7 is checkmate. We are here and we just looked into where king took this knight. Let's check out what happened in the game actually. Pawn took the knight on h5 that came in to give the check. Magnus Carlsen went on with another stunning move. Very shocking and surprising. Magnus Carlsen played a spectacular queen takes the pawn on g5. Check. This is hilarious, right? Well, he gave the queen. Queen was captured by this pawn. If you look at this position, the king cannot come here because of this knight. The king can go to a square like this or like this. If the king goes here, it will be a checkmate after knight move to this square, and that is checkmate. So, a way to prolong the winning is by taking this queen. Check this out. A checkmate by minor pieces comes up after Magnus Carlsen storms into the 7th rank with the rook. Check. That square is defended by the knight. King takes the knight. Rook takes this pawn. And that is checkmate by the bishop and the rook. Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, do not forget to support my channel, subscribe to my channel for more, like this video and share to your friends. See you in more videos like this on this channel.